Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Henry, campaign manager for Andy Ogles, running for U.S. Congress in Tennessee's 5th District. And welcome back to another edition of Inside the District. If you are joining us for the very first time on this program, this Tennessee's 5th District is a completely different district than what it was in just years past. And what we're trying to do here in this program is give an insider's perspective, some insight into what's happening throughout Middle Tennessee in this district, told by the local leaders themselves, and in so doing, hopefully building that relationship between the federal and the state, the federal and the local, as we go forward into next year. Joining us today is none other than Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson of the Tennessee General Assembly. For those in our audience that may not know you, although I presume most of them absolutely do, go ahead and tell us, introduce yourself, tell us the district that you serve, and why you originally ran for office.
Sure, Grant. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation to join you for this program. I am Jack Johnson. I'm the state senator for Williamson County. It is currently the 23rd senatorial district, but when our new redistricting takes place in November after the election, it will become the 27th senatorial district. So we had a numerical change there. I also have the honor of serving in the Senate as the majority leader, elected by my Republican colleagues to be the Republican leader. And since we are the majority party, that makes me the majority leader as well. And it's a real honor to get to represent Williamson County in the state Senate. I've been interested in government and politics since I was a kid. I was 12 years old. I'm going to give my age away. I was 12 years old when Ronald Reagan was elected president. And so from the time I was 12 till I was about 20, he was the president of the United States. And like many of my generation, he had a tremendous impact on me and certainly melded. My parents obviously did as well. They were very conservative, but Ronald Reagan just had that way of being a conservative with a smile on his face, and he did such wonderful things for our country. So I've been very active in Tennessee politics for over 30 years. Was first elected to this Senate seat in 2006, and really have been fortunate enough to somewhat have a front row seat to see Tennessee transition from an overwhelmingly Democratic state to an overwhelmingly Republican state. And so it's a real honor to get to serve and be a part of that. And we've done some really wonderful things with our Republican majority. So look forward to serving for another 4 years.
Yeah, if you could make a list of the number of individuals that Reagan brought into conservatism, the impact that left, right? The real lasting legacy of not feeling embarrassed about being an American, right? That sense of Americana and national pride and all the stuff that goes along with it. Let me ask you this then, Leader Johnson. What would you say are some of the top issues facing your district right now, or maybe just the top issue facing your district right now?
Well, unfortunately, on the bad side, it's the fact that we have a president of the United States who is antithetical of everything that Ronald Reagan stood for, and it seems as if is purposely trying to destroy our nation with record deficits, $33 trillion deficits, student loan forgiveness programs. A big issue. I don't know that it's the issue, but it's certainly one that is very concerning to my constituents. Is the fact that Joe Biden has made every state a border state and every town a border town. President Trump demonstrated, he proved that you can secure the southern border. And many presidents and Congresses have talked about doing it, but President Trump actually did it and had the border virtually secure. I'm not saying it was 100%, but he showed that you can stem that flow of illegal immigration coming into our country. So that's a big one. And it's something, by the way, I'm so excited. My friend Andy Ogles going to Congress, and I'm confident he will win in November. And I encourage all of my friends out there in the 5th Congressional District to get out and vote for him. And if you need any motivation other than the fact Andy's a great guy and he'll make an outstanding congressman, just understand a vote for Andy is a vote to get rid of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. If you need any more motivation than that, I don't know what it could possibly be. But the Biden policies have resulted in unprecedented inflation. People are feeling that in their pocketbooks. They're worried about the economy. You look at the juxtaposition between what's happening in Tennessee under Republican leadership, balanced budgets, least indebted state in the nation, lowest tax state in the nation, fastest small business growth. In 2021, out of all 50 states, Tennessee had the fastest growing economy out of all 50 states. And then you look at what's happening in Washington. So it's just this tug of war, it seems, people are experiencing the bad policies that are coming out of Washington and the Biden administration versus what's happening here in Tennessee. And it's why we've got to get Andy elected in November. I'm confident he will be. I know he's working hard, but we have to do everything to make sure that that 5th congressional district seat is represented by Andy Ogles and not by his Democratic opponent.
Yeah, and as those terrible economic policies in D.C. are replicated in other Democrat states, you're starting to see this flee, right? I mean, we have California refugees that they tell us are coming into Tennessee all the time, and they're fleeing these Democrat-controlled states, I think, for the exact reasons you just talked about, not least of the economic situation, but immigration is another huge one that you just touched on as well. We used to have a general sense of some kind of bipartisan support as to there was a concern at the border, and then it became a negotiating tool. And I'll be honest, the situation going at the border has so many terrible humanitarian concerns on the back end of it. The drugs coming across the borders, the cartels that are actually controlling the human trafficking situation. It's a terrible, terrible thing to witness firsthand. And it's an even a more egregious thing to see the Biden administration just not addressing it at all, refusing to address it. And I want to know, coming back to the state of Tennessee a little bit here, what are the top priorities of the Tennessee General Assembly next year?
Well, I'm gonna give you two, and I always start with the most important thing we do as a General Assembly is decide how much taxes you should pay, how much in tax you should pay, and how do we spend those tax dollars. And again, I'm proud to say that Tennessee is the least taxed state on a per capita basis in the nation. And by the way, as we've cut taxes every year for the past decade in Tennessee, our revenue has gone up, which shows that the Reaganomic principles that we talked about from the 80s, the Laffer curve, whatever metric you want to use, they actually work. We've created a strong business climate here in Tennessee. But certainly that budget, as majority leader, I'm the sponsor of the budget, and it's the only constitutional responsibility we have as a General Assembly is to pass a budget. And we are required under the Constitution to do that. The other issue that I would say that I'm hearing from more and more is the attempt by the left, the extremist left, to indoctrinate our society at all levels with wokeism, whatever you want to call it. But this indoctrination that is taking place or attempting to take place in our schools, K-12, higher education, we're seeing it there. We're seeing it in our corporations, our boardrooms, with trying to implement ESG policies that are taking place. In academia, you're seeing more DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, which, by the way, all sound wonderful. But when you really dig into it, it's an attempt to indoctrinate these woke left policies into all levels of society in America. And we're fighting that. We've been fighting that in Tennessee, and we will certainly continue to do so. But the left will continue to find ways. We might stamp it out over here, but they'll find out some other way to try to get it into our schools, higher education, our boardrooms, all facets of government and the private sector as well. So we just have to make sure we keep our antenna up and we recognize those attempts and we stamp it out wherever possible.
I know one of Andy Ogles' primary concerns, at least as far as the U.S. congressional level is concerned, is federal overreach. It's a term that a lot of people have heard of before, but I think it's most aptly described as when the federal government starts messing around with Tennessee values, right? Just let Tennessee be Tennessee. And then this is fully encompassed within the 10th Amendment, right? Obviously, just plainly stating what powers are not specifically given to the federal government are retained by the states. Here's the question then, Senator. Do you think that the state can do something to empower the 10th Amendment more, to push back on the federal government? Is there a cooperation between the U.S. Congress? How does that all work,
Well, I tell you, it is multifaceted, and certainly there are things we can do when you have a Biden administration who is completely oblivious, completely ignores state sovereignty, the 10th Amendment, states' rights, federalism, if you will, versus, say, under the 4 years of the Trump administration. We saw a real reversion back to more states' rights, more autonomy at the state and the local level under the Trump administration, and it was a wonderful thing. I can give you real tangible examples, say how we managed TennCare, which is our Medicaid waiver program. We got more flexibility, more freedom. That's what the framers intended. Now, we've seen that taken away under the Biden administration. Reason we need to send Andy Ogles to Congress, again, to get rid of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, But I know that Andy agrees with you and I over this idea of federalism and state sovereignty. The framers intended for the federal government to be small and limited in scope. And look at what has happened over the last 100 years, beginning with the progressive movement in the 1920s, early 1900s. And so we've got to get back to that. And my hope is that pendulum will continue to swing. Certainly, there is a role for the federal government. Hey, how about securing the border? That's a role of the federal government. And by the way, Joe Biden, you're failing miserably at that. Controlling interstate commerce. Those are legitimate functions of the federal government. But coming in, trying to teach us what to teach our kids in kindergarten, get out of our way, federal government. It's why we need to just get rid of the United States Department of Education. I've been saying that for many years. We saw an attempt by the United States Congress under Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to federalize our elections, to let the federal government control how we elect people in Tennessee. And we're not going to have that. So I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful. We're going to send Andy Ogles to the United States Congress. He's going to do a great job up there representing the 5th District, which includes a big chunk of Williamson County. And I look forward to working with him. I know he'll be a great partner, just as my friend Mark Green has done a great job in these very areas. He represents right now he represents all of Williamson County, but when the new districts go into place, we'll have Andy Ogles and Mark Green. We couldn't have two better people, I think, representing us in Washington and fighting for our states' rights and state sovereignty up there. So my hope is we get control, Republicans get control of both the House and the Senate in November. They'll be able to mitigate and stem some of the damage that's being done by the Biden administration. They won't be able to stop it all because he'll continue to issue executive orders, and whether they're constitutional or not. And then obviously in 2024, we've got to get a Republican back in the White House, someone who, like President Trump in the previous administration, recognizes the importance of states' rights and state sovereignty and will begin to rein that federal government back in. I really believe, Grant, if we could get that sustained for, say, 8 years, let's say over a couple of presidential terms, be it the same person or not, and a cooperative Congress, we could unravel so much of this and get the federal government out of our way and let us run Tennessee the way you say. Let's run Tennessee the way we want to run Tennessee.
Yeah, there really does need to be a concerted effort made to re-educate some of our elected leaders as it pertains to the proper role of the federal government in our lives, and a limited government marked by checks and balances, whereby freedom is ensured. That is the design. And Senator, on the way out here, let me ask you one final question. This 5th congressional district now contains about half of Williamson County. And when Andy Ogles wins this seat, you two will share some of the same constituents, albeit from an entirely different angle, one federal and one state. So how would you like to see this level of communication or cooperation between the state and this federal seat improve in the future?
Well, we've had a great relationship with our two United States senators, Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty. Certainly, Congressman Mark Green has done a very good job, and I know Andy will as well. It's important that they be responsive to us and vice versa, because Congressman Ogles, when he becomes congressman, again, I'm hopeful and confident that he will, but when he takes office, he's going to get calls from constituents about particular issues that are more of a state issue. And so he'll hand those off to my office or perhaps the state representative that represents that particular constituent. Conversely, I'm going to get calls from people with concerns about federal issues. And having that good working relationship, as we've had with Mark Green and Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, having Andy Ogles in there representing that roughly half of Williamson County, I know he's going to be a great partner for us, and that we see eye to eye on the role of state government versus federal government. And it's just going to be good to know that he's up there fighting the good fight for us and not trying to thwart the good things that we're doing at the state level here in Tennessee. He'll be a champion of what we're doing in terms of implementing conservative policy, and vice versa. We'll have his back and be a champion for the good fight that I know he's going to wage on our behalf in the United States Congress.
Senator Johnson, on the way out, anything that we didn't touch, anything else you'd like to express, anything else that people should know about?
Just please go vote. If you live in the 5th congressional district, make sure you get out and vote. You've got Governor Lee on the ballot, and he does have Democratic opposition. We'll see how serious it is or how much of a campaign that amounts to be. I serve in the Senate with Andy's Democratic opponent, and I can tell you she's a fighter. Now, she is far left, and I don't think she would represent the values of this 5th congressional district, but she's going to work hard. She's going to raise a lot of money. We can't take this race for granted. We need Andy Ogles in the United States Congress. So I expect that he will win. I know Andy's fighting hard. He's not taking anything for granted. And from now through Election Day in November, he's going to be out there working hard every day to earn your vote. And so please get out and vote in November. Make sure you vote for Andy Ogles and Governor Lee and all the Republicans up and down the ballot. So I look forward to working with Andy in his new role. He was a great county mayor down in Murray County, and he's going to be a great United States congressman. I look forward to working with him.
Senator Johnson, we sincerely appreciate for your time today. And that will do it for today on Inside the District. On behalf of Andy Ogles, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, my name is Grant Henry. We will see you all next time.